Burns and Yonk have managed to finish on the podium in all 3 races so far. However, Burns still needs his first win of the season, or at least to beat Yonk on the track. The points gap is about as narrow as their gap in pace. Will be a nail-biter for sure. Let's see what Spa holds in store as we get ready to watch round 4 of the absolute beginners league Formula Neagle, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is DJ Clark. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. While most tracks rely heavily on the slipstream and the skippy, Spa is on another level. Let's head to our track guide so that you can understand just what we mean. Welcome to Road Atlanta, the scene of incredible sports car racing for decades and the home to the Petit Le Mans. This is a track that has proven itself to be worthy of attention on a world stage. With it being situated only an hour northeast of Atlanta, Georgia, the circuit is in a prime location. But despite its flagship race, in contrast to the real Le Mans, the full course is a measly 2.5 miles long. The club layouts also clock in at just under 2 miles. Packed within this small lap length is a series of technical and challenging corners, some of which can be race-ending even when small mistakes are made. Turn 1 is a fast sweeper which compresses the car into the track, but the high speeds mean that when you go off, you typically go off in a big way. Turn 3 is notorious for its curved entry into a blind apex. Welcome to Spa-Francorchamps. Less than an hour's drive east from the German border, this Belgian track has come to define racing for many different eras in the sport. It's no wonder it continues to entrance drivers when you look at the stats. The 7 kilometers over the course of a lap includes more than 330 feet in elevation change as it weaves its way through the Ardennes forest. Packed into this is 19 turns, some of which are considered among the most famous in the world of racing. Corners like La Source and Blanchemont have been on the lips of drivers for decades. But by far the most notorious is Eau Rouge and Rétillon. Typically referred to in name by just the first section, it dips low and swings left, then compresses and climbs to the right up a massive hill. The sequence ends with a completely blind crest that sweeps to the left and leads onto the incredibly long Kemmel Straight. The bravery required to be fast through there will pay off towards one of the most popular passing spots at Lacombe. Eau Rouge is exemplary of the rest of the circuit though. Most of the turns are incredibly fast and many include much of that signature elevation change. As jaw-dropping as the track is, you have to remember that this is the modern truncated layout. The old one, raced until 1979, was 14 kilometers in length, yet carried an average speed of 150 miles per hour. Present-day safety measures do cut down on the danger, but even in recent history, the circuit has proven deadly. It's clear why this track continues to be revered and respected by racers the world round. DJ, here at Spa, we often see these draft races, but in the skippies, it's going to be the main story, I imagine.
It most certainly is, Joe. The draft here, going from La Source all the way up the Kemmel Straight, is going to be the top priority of these drivers. Making sure they can absolutely maximize it and get everything right is going to be the name of the game. But they're also going to have to be careful. The run down from Lacombe all the way really down through Stavelot is very tricky. And in these skippies, not a lot of downforce, a lot of decent amount of mechanical grip. They're going to have to make sure that they stay on their game, not pick up any off tracks, not pick up any silly mistakes as they go through. We could see a pass or two potentially coming down into the bus stop chicane after Blanchemont as well. But I fear that doing that will set drivers up for a counterattack going up through that La Source Kemmel Straight section. So one way or the other, it's going to be very, very interesting, and watch for a lot of sort of head games and strategy to play in big today.
Speaking of head games, I have a feeling that Yonk and Burns are going to be playing that as we take a look at the championship. Only 10 points between them right now. It's just another 16 back to Ludwig Sauer, but we haven't seen him as in the hunt as the others. Josh Dancy's been quick, but he sits down in fifth in a very close fight with Josh Brain. But that's just the F1 drivers' standings. They also have an amateur series, the F2 drivers. Let's take a look at that.
Well, Joe, in that F2 series, you can see Sauer on top there by a whopping 34 points with series organizer Wojciech Podacek about 34 points back of him. Good battle shaping up, though, in second place between Podacek, Bernardi, Harris, and Bernardi. Those all separated by only 4 points. So really that second place in the F2 is still very much to play for.
As for the team's championship, up at the top of that one, we have Two Stupid Dogs leading Video Browers racing team by about 15 points. And Yonk is on that Video Browers racing team. Burns is on the Two Stupid Dogs. So it's sort of flipped around from what we have in the F1 championship. Evolve Motorsports a little bit farther back with Shake and Bake and Kumbach rounding out your top five. This could easily switch around after today or by the end of the season. What about today's details? Why don't you run us through that, DJ?
Well, in those race details, we are out here in the skippies as we always are, and we are in store for a 40-minute race. Drivers are out on track right now for a 15-minute open qualifying session, which means that they will be able to take full advantage of the draft. So watch for those times to play into that. Now, it is open setups, but there is a 51% fuel limit, which means drivers will have to come into the pits over the course of the race. Do not expect them to change tires, though it'll only be for fuel. And as a little bit of a change here from some of our other normal series, it is a standing start. And as we talked about those championships, Joe, it's the fourth of 5 rounds, so it's very much go time for these drivers.
Anybody who's watched Formula One race here knows that a standing start at Spa can create some action at the start. Right now, though, the action is on the track with the qualifying, but it takes so long to get around here. We've only had 10 drivers at a time. Make that 11 as Zilke joins them in as well. It's so easy to discount your lap at this place, so I wouldn't be surprised, DJ, if we see a few drivers never get a time in.
Yeah, indeed. We had this happen a couple of times when we were watching the Precision Racing League around here, as a matter of fact. Spa is notorious for picking up those off tracks, specifically coming out of Pujol. You can get it occasionally there as we ride on board with Dana Bose, coming out of Blanchimont, some of the trickier sections of the track, and of course, coming over the crest of Radillon. You can very easily pick up an off track, and if that happens, it'll discount your lap. So we could see a couple of quick cars starting from the back and having to work their way up through the field.
Absolutely. Yushonk still waiting for his first one, although Burns holds that provisional pole. And as Bose crosses the line, looks like it is going to be a 252.5 for Dana. Meanwhile, looks like Burns coming around and getting ready to set another quick lap as he's got a nice toe off of Plaisir and Brahim in front of him.
Yeah, Vincent getting being the one to pull that toe along. And as I said, Burns doing a good job here. You've got to kind of time out the draft when you come out of La Source, you come out of Stavelot on these qualifying laps. You really want to make sure you get it right and make sure that you're not going to be held up when you're in this draft train, and instead can just take advantage of those cars in front breaking the air for you.
Roughly half the field still yet to set a lap time around here. Vincent Brahim leading this group ahead of David Burns. And the timing line comes up quick here just after the bus stop chicane. Brahim is going to put in a 2:48, so he will improve. Burns will not improve. What about Just Jonk?
Here comes used to the line. That's going to be fourth for the Benelux driver, so that's good, but not great for him. He's going to be a little bit closer. He's about 0.4 of a second off, so he'll hopefully get a little bit closer there to his title rival. As we watch Solander coming to the line right now. Give me a little bit of a slow lap there for Solander, off the pace of what we've seen from some of the other drivers.
And Grule is going to get one in, putting him in 12th. Looks like Campbell with a 250.7. will also jump to 12th after that. Randall's unfortunately going to be deleted as we now watch Troy Banks with Zilke in tow behind him. Troy yet to set a time, as well as Rob Adams, who is currently way down the order of 50.9, 13th for him. What about Troy? Getting ready to set one, hopefully clean. Nope, that one gets deleted as well. So he gets about 2 more tries at it.
Yeah, indeed. We've got about 6 or so drivers that haven't set that time. Brain Hop, Angelo, Hop, Mann, and Banks. So still waiting for them to set it in. Pretty big disparity among the entire field, but the top couple here, Joe, very, very close together. Remco only about 0.03 of a second off of your leader, David Burns, and Brahim only about 0.3 off.
This Plaisir, who we're watching, still leading the charge with Burns behind him, and Potacek as well. I know Bose is getting ready to come across for a second one in that number 16 car. Watching, and it looks like Dana puts down a 252.2, up 1 position into 18th thanks to that. These will be the next group of cars down and across the line. Everybody kind of running together here. They wanted to get out early knowing how few laps you can get, even if you do hustle to the track as soon as the pits open in qualifying.
Yeah, indeed, Joe. Spa, one of the longer circuits and some more sort of modern type circuits that we see out there as we continue to watch. Burns looking like he's taking a little bit of an non-opportunistic line there, maybe poking out of the draft so slightly so he doesn't have to try to overtake, but it looks like he's going to pull out again, maybe thinking about that overtake on Pilsier there. Pulling back into bus stop, and this is that sort of concertina effect when he's got to be braking a little bit earlier than he would prefer to. That may knock off a couple of tenths from his time, but let's see if Remco's got anything for your leader as he crosses the line.
242 or 248.2, and behind him it's even quicker for Burns at 247.9. He keeps the pole. Potacek moves into second ahead of Remco, and Brahim doesn't go faster that time by. Behind them, Crook down to a 248.6. That'll be 5th place. Brain into 4th. Jonk not able to go faster. He'll have 2 more chances. He's got to keep it clean, and he's got to be quick.
Yes, he does. He'll be able to jump his way forward if he's able to get into that good draft, but it's not going to be easy for you. Solander there looking like he's got a good time. That's going to pump him up to 14th. It's like Grula was able to come in there. There you see Solander taking a very harsh line through La Source.
Randall up to 10th with his latest lap. And then up next is going to be Rob Adams, who's down in 17th. So Solander down towards Eau Rouges. This is Rob, and a 250.5, only up 1 position for him. Troy Banks is next, still yet to set a time along with Zelke, who's in 21st. Troy still had an off somewhere in there that discounted it. Looks like Sven also ran into the same issue. So drivers pushing the limits a little too hard.
Yeah, indeed. You've got to be very careful. We said those off tracks will bite you, and that's exactly what's happening. Banks, Man, Hop, Angelo, and Hop still not setting a time yet. We watch Dana Bose here making his way through the final sector of the track, through Blanchimont, coming down into the bus stop. Looks like this could be a pretty decent time here for the Canadian, but he's going to peel off into the pits.
Nick Carty is next in the number 17. He had a 2:49.9 last time by. This time, it's not going to count at all. We won't know what that one wound up being, unfortunately. And it's his last lap in qualifying. Pressure is on for him. Then we've got Potacek, Burns, Brame, and Pleisier. Let's see if any of them can get the pole away from the 125, who's looking quick, and he wants that first win. In fact, Burns is going to be able to slingshot past here, it looks like. Potacek to his inside. Is Potacek going to pull out? No, he's going to force him to go side by side. And that may have been an off track there for David Burns. Slowing up, Potacek gives it up. Vincent Brame behind them, still running. He might be clean, be able to take this away from the 125.
Yes, he might, and there you see a little bit of an offline there for the 25. So here they're going to come across the line. Let's check those times. Burns is going to be unable to improve, not seeing an improvement out of Potacek, but Brame able to go a little bit faster and bump his way up to P3.
And Pleisier doesn't go any faster either. Meanwhile, Brame doesn't find a better time. Yonk, oh, unfortunately, he went off track. This is his last chance. Crook and Krumholtz also failing to set a time that time by. We see Wilfert on the screen as he comes through. Looks like he unfortunately went outside the boundaries. Nick Anderson did likewise. Then you've got Grule in there. Man, a lot of drivers just unfortunately discovering how hard it is to keep it clear. Troy Banks had to spin, so he's not going to be able to set a time as he would have been the next one through. That leaves us to Nick Carty in the number 17, who sits in 11th as the checkered flag comes out.
And so Carty's going to be the last driver to cross over the line here. I think a lot of these drivers getting some of those off tracks because they're running so close behind one another, just getting a little bit of push as they try to get as far as they can and take advantage of the corners of the track. Carty running a good line there through Campus and through Stavelo now. Just a couple corners to go. The fearsome Blanchimont corner in these skippies. Very, very tricky. You got to do a little bit of throttling off as you come through there.
Yep, a little over 110 miles an hour for Nick Carty as he approaches it. 115 before the car starts to scrub off the speed. That one was clean. He's going to try and get into the top 10. He's got to make up 0.2 of a second to do so, to overtake Jeff Randall right now into the bus stop. He's doing it all on his lonesome as well. No draft to help him along like some of our other front runners. So Nick Carty, what's it going to be? It's slow, a 250 flat. He will not improve. Next up is our leaders.
Yes, indeed it is. Heading up that train, it's Potacek, Brames, and Burns and Peisler there as they come through. That's Potacek out front. I would say the best situated here is probably Vincent Breme in that black 25 machine. Looks like he's going to have a good advantage of draft and just hope that you're not going to have any drivers. Oh, that is Burns going off wide. So that's going to be a discounted lap for Burns. He's not going to be able to try to improve there, I'd imagine.
He's only got half a tenth over Potacek, so it's not going to take much for him to steal that pole away. Also pulling out Vincent Brame. So Pleasure is going to be next down into the bus stop chicane. Both of those two cars at the back pull into the pits. Potacek coming to the line. What does he have? A 47.6. That is enough for pole to take it away from Burns and also Remco onto the front row.
All right, yeah, and then Youst Young able to improve on that last lap as well. He'll be able to get up to 5th, so he'll be starting next to to Josh Brain, directly behind his title rival. Mackenzie Mann able to go faster, bump his way up to 18th right there. Here comes Alexander Wilfert to the line, currently 9th. Does the driver of the 79 have anything else to put in? No, that's going to be a slow time for Wilfert.
Anderson gets one last shot at it. Doesn't go any quicker. Campbell coming up next after Solander. As the 92 crosses a 250.1, will put him into 12th. And I think that is everybody. Yes, indeed. Qualifying is done here for round 4 of the Absolute Beginners League Formula Neagle. Let's go through that starting order. Wojciech Potacek on the pole with Remco Pleasure in second. It'll be David Burns starting third with Vincent Brame in P4. Youst Young all the way down in 5th as Josh Brain starts in 6th, Christopher Crook 7th. Then you've got Kroomholz P8, and then row 5 has Wilfert and Randall next to each other.
Starting off in 11th is going to be Nick Carty, followed by AJ Campbell with Christopher Giras and Christian Grula making up row 7. Behind them, it'll be Andre Solander and Titus DeYoung with Rob Adams in 17th and Mackenzie Mann in 18th. And then rounding out your top 20 in row 10, it's Nicholas Anderson and Klaus Loden.
21st was Bose and Zilke in 22nd. Last two to set a time. Rob Hopp, Scott Angelo, Troy Banks, and Christopher Hopp, no relation, will be at the back of our 25-car field here today, which should be gridding in just a moment. It's early in the morning here, so it's relatively cool temperatures on the surface, but it's not the temperatures the drivers are going to be concerned about. It is the fuel here today, which will give us perhaps the most intrigue throughout today's race.
Yeah, it most certainly will. Temperatures here, as you said, Joe, pretty cool on the track, 71 degrees, so not going to be too much of a concern, I think, in terms of overheating the tires or anything like that. But watch for this first lap. I think we're going to see a lot of craziness as we get down into La Source. Drivers now starting to grid up, anxiously waiting for this thing to start.
And yep, they're just starting to grid up now with Wojciech Potacek on the top spot, but who can survive the run into La Source? Will we have a melee into there, or will drivers try and tiptoe around knowing that they'll have better opportunities to try and make passes later on, especially using that slipstream? As you see them mostly gridded up now, we're just waiting on Wojciech along with Brame, Giros, and the two Hops to get out there onto the track. It is a short season in this series, and there are no drop weeks involved, so every finish is going to count. They can't risk sending it off and making contact in that first lap unless they really think they can climb back, because they do have a spare car that they can take, but they can't take it too early because they have that limited fuel. That means that they've got to make a pit stop within a certain range, or else it'll be an extra one down the line. I think Potacek, Brame, Angelo, Christopher Hopp are going to be our last 4 gridded up. They get about 2 minutes to try and do so, so they do have time to put it out there, but not forever. So we are waiting anxiously as we look for the drivers to put themselves out there. The pole on the pole, Wojciech Potacek, should be gridding up here any moment. The question is, will he find that checkered flag first, much like he managed to go quickest in the qualifying? Looks like he is now out there. So where is Vincent Brame now? If he doesn't grid up, this is going to be a heck of a climb for that 25 here today. So hopefully he will be out there. And it looks like he will not grid up as the lights come up and the green flag is out. Potacek off the line decently. as they all start to work their way off to the left-hand side, coming up into the La Source hairpin. 3 wide behind them. Someone sending it up the inside, as that's Josh Brain on the far outside, trying to give enough space. They got to fan out there or else they won't get through, and it looks like we managed to get everyone past La Source.
We did indeed. I believe that was Krumholtz sending it down to the inside, making that 3 wide. We've got another 3 wide in the back there. Very crazy action as they start to single file the best they can. Ooh, I think that's Crook completely sideways coming up over Radion. Manages to keep it together.
I'm shocked if Crook did not get a slowdown penalty for that. That was Krumholtz as well as Brain once again. And through the middle of it all, here comes Wilfert. He's going to snooker all 3 of them. And he's going to bring along a friend. That is Randall going through as well, breaking down into the first corner. And Jost Jonk takes the lead away from Potacek up at the front.
Does indeed. Remco getting a little bit squirrely there as well, coming through Lacombe, and that allowed for Potacek to be able to hold on to that second place position. Otherwise, I think he would have been real under threat. David Burns, though, just being nice and calm there, back in fourth, watching all of this unfold in front of him.
Burns knows the deal. He's a veteran in this series. We'll see if he can just hang back and save some fuel amongst this group, or does he want to try and get up and lead? They are breaking away from the next group, which is led by Wilfert after that brilliant overtake. Whoa, and a spin, an almost spin. Is that David Burns? That is.
Oh my goodness gracious, the rarest of mistakes there from David Burns. He's going to see himself drop down to about 8th place here at this point. Big problems for your championship winner in years past.
That might be championship defining, honestly. He is well behind Jost Jonk, and the chances are slim, honestly, for him to try and catch up from here. It's not impossible, as we see it now, the top 3 breaking away, as Wilfert's in a world of his own. Behind him, it is all kinds of craziness with Krumholtz, Gyros, Randall, Burns, Brain, Crook, all battling for position.
And it looks like Gyros is going to try to make a move down to the inside of Krumholtz, going through Blanchimont. That's going to be a little bit aggressive, but I think he's got it done if he wants to. Yes, indeed, he does. Burns feeling a little bit trapped back there. He's having to look this way and that on Jeff Randall, just trying to find something. That's Burns popping out to the inside.
Krumholtz is now looking to outbreak the likes of Gyros down into the bus stop chicane, but he locks it up slightly. The battle continues. Oh, and they're going to make contact. That sends Gyros a little bit far off, and Krumholtz loses pace. And look at them all behind them, each finding their own little piece of track. 3 wide, 2 wide, coming up to La Source for the second time.
Ooh, we're going to get about 3 wide there. That's Solander thinking about making a move down to the inside. Crook, I think, picked up a little bit of damage from that scuffle up ahead of him, but we make it through the Source nice and cleanly. Now, that is Burns trying to chase down Gyros, and we're still side by side. That is, I believe, behind Krumholtz and Randall.
It is, and neither one looks willing to give way, but Krumholtz able to pull ahead by the time they hit Eau Rouge. Stefan keeping it within the racing boundaries. Now he gives a big toe to those behind him, and the battle starts all over again.
Yeah, but we've had an off in the back. I believe that's Grula, and Adams got a little bit collected as they made it up through Eau Rouge. But we're going to check in on the lead, as that's a swap over. Remco able to get around Jost Jonk.
So it's a change around for that group. They're expecting it to be a lot more calm than what we've been witnessing behind, and indeed it looks like that is now teammates running line astern. Oh, maybe not. Apologies.
It's not there, but you can see Potacek now trying to have a little bit of look on Jonk, thinking about it at least a little bit. He just wants to stay up and keep close in that draft as much as possible.
So we go to the 8th spot. Cylinder is leading Krumholtz, Brain, and Crook down towards Pouan. Once again, a little bit of a defensive line from Andre. Just trying to make sure that nobody tries to do anything silly into the corner, but he's going to go a little wide, just to be an incident point for him. It appears that Krumholtz, though, is going to try and take advantage. He's got better pace. He'll have to go around the outside, as that is Crook now ducking it down to the inside of Brain, and he is overtaken. Positions swapping around wherever you look.
Yeah, just this way and that. Krumholtz very, very aggressive here in these opening stages. You see a little bit of an aggressive line there again coming through campus. This could be 3 wide down to the bus stop or even into Blanchimont with the way these guys have been riding. Crook and Krumholtz looking very, very attacky here today, just trying to get something by Solander, and indeed, there goes Krumholtz down on the inside.
As that's happening, Jonk is side by side with Remco. So it's a battle for the lead down into the braking of the bus stop. Behind them giving watch. Potacek just waiting patiently. To the inside, Jonk is going to be able to make the overtake. He is our new leader.
Remember, I talked about we'll have to watch Remco if he's able to fight back through La Source. That battle back for 8th. It looks like Krumholtz was able to get ahead, and Solander having a little bit of an off coming through Blanchimont. But Remco now setting the fastest lap of the race, quickly usurped by David Third Degree Burns. Great run out of La Source there for Remco. I think he may have a run on Jonk if he wants it.
Absolutely. We see them coming down towards the Eau Rouge, plunge through and across the creek and then up and over Radillon. This is where they all want that exit. Right now, Remco is going to have a great tow, but he's got to worry about what Potacek is going to do in this. He's going to poke his nose out, so Remco off to the left-hand side. Jonk will potentially slot back into line. Yes, he does, and Potacek doesn't attempt an attack at all. Wilfert has been caught now behind them, and looks like Giros is going to be able to get by, and as well as David Burns. Wow, Burns really trying to make good on the pace that he knows he has. Can he catch those in front of him? He's only got to make up about 3 seconds.
Well, Burns is in a position we're not used to seeing him here, where he's got to be on full attack mode to try to get up front. Now, he's still got a pretty big gap, about 3 seconds up the road to Wojciech Potacek in P3. And without the benefit of the draft, he may find that a little bit difficult to close in. Burns' only hope here is going to be that he maybe have that car trimmed down a little bit, have a little bit more downforce, and he'll be able to catch up during the twisty bits.
Potacek last time by a 250.5, but he was lifting behind those in front of him, not trying to pass, whereas Burns used the slipstream and hit a 48.7, so much faster. But this might be more representative this time if we keep an eye on that one. Just watching from the roll hoop of David Burns ahead of Giros and Wilford. If he works together with those two behind him, that actually might give him better pace. It all depends on how those two are feeling, if they want to try and be kind to David Burns, or if they're just interested in either saving fuel behind him or maybe attacking and causing all of them to slow up.
Yeah, exactly. That's really what it's going to come down to, Joe. And that strategy around here, it's a super, super long lap. So if you are able to lift and coast a little bit as we watch, there's Jonk making a move to the outside of Remco through Blanchimont. These two just keep swapping back and forth. I think Jonk ran a little bit wide. Potacek thinking about making it 3 wide, thinks better of it, but he's going to fall back into line. I like this heads-up, heady driving from Wojciech Potacek. He is running a great race here today.
Absolutely. I think he's got himself a handy spot. He knows it, and he ran a 249.9 that time through. David Burns ran a 248.3, so he did gain. I think Burns is indeed faster. We might have a 6-car fight pretty soon.
Yeah, we might, and it'll be interesting to see here with Burns and Giros and Wilfert behind him. Looks like Giros is a little far back right now. We've had a spin in the back. Josh Brain around in La Source.
Oh, no, the 946 going to fall well down the order, and he was sitting in a good position. He was in 10th before. Let's take a look at the replay. I think this was all his own doing.
Yeah, just carried a little bit too much speed into La Source. That's a cambered corner, so you can normally take a good amount of speed there. But I think as he turned in, those rear tires just didn't have enough grip, and that sent him around. So Brain's going to find himself all the way back down in 18th right now.
Well, there goes my theory. Potacek has moved himself up to the front of this group. He is now leading as well. I thought for sure he would just sit back there, take some fuel, and get back out in front by leapfrogging them. I wonder if this has anything to do with noticing that Burns ran quicker last time by. Is this the hurry up they needed to maybe try and leapfrog one another and get as much speed as they can lap after lap?
Very well could be, Joe. You know, normally we're used to seeing 3 to about 5 cars up front just kind of running their own race. A lot of guys wanting to stick back and hold out. But as you said, Burns just continuing to close down on these drivers in front. Remco taking a little bit of an opposite line there as they work their way out of Pouhon. And I think that seeing that raw pace from David Burns definitely causing it. Podacek getting a little bit sideways through the first curve of Fagnes there.
Well, this is going to narrow our championship hunt down significantly after Josh Brain had his spin. He was sitting in 4th in the championship coming into things, and he's likely to lose a lot of positions from that. And we don't have Ludwig Sauer here today, who is sitting in 3rd. So between Jonk and Burns, they probably going to be able to stretch away, as it appears we're going to stay single file with our leaders, but not with those behind them. There you can see it is Burns going past Giros and Wilfert sitting back behind.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that leapfrog effect that'll help you get forward if possible. I think Burns wants to lead this group a little bit. You know, he was passed by Giros earlier, and that definitely slowed him up a little bit. So watching the leaders here, Podacek taking a good line out of bus stop. Remco and Jonk, they're behind as they cross over the line. The gap now back to that trailing pack is under 2 seconds.
Burns still faster than Jonk. Yeah, he definitely gained a little bit on that one. Podacek up to a 2:48.5. So yeah, he wants to try and get himself away. Is down to the inside. That is Wilfert looking on Giros, and then decides to come back to the racing line once again. I've heard the siren go off in the pits a couple times, but I think now would probably be about the earliest we'd see anybody pit, which would be Mackenzie Mann, as we continue to watch the 79 chasing the 36, looking over his rear wing. He's going to force him to go around the outside, as in front of them, Jonk is once again going to take the lead as Podacek moves to the back of that group. And a swap between 5th and 6th as Burns remains in P4.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a little bit of music to the ears of David Burns. He definitely lost some time there on the Kemmel Straight as they were in that little scrap behind him. And so not having the advantage of the draft certainly costing him time. But the pass there in the back has allowed for Wilfert and Giro to close back in on Burns a little bit. And that's going to help him try to catch up with our leaders.
Otherwise, it's been a little bit uneventful through the remainder of the fields. Really, the big storyline that we're starting to see develop is whether or not these second group of 3 can chase down the top group of 3. Perhaps the pit stops will change the complexion of that as well. Getting close to the halfway mark. It takes nearly 3 minutes just to get around a lap at this track. So we're expecting, 13, 14 laps around today?
Yeah, that's about right, Joe. And in terms of that pit stop strategy, because it is such a long lap, it is very difficult to be able to pull off an overcut and go an extra lap longer. But if you're able to do it, it'll certainly help you out a whole bunch. Our leading pack here making their way out of Stadlo right now, coming down into this run into Blanchimont. Looks like Burns has a pretty decent advantage over Wilfert. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get the pass, but Remco's certainly thinking about trying to make a pass here as they work their way through Blanchimont right now.
Have the leaders finally calmed down a little bit? It looks like it. No passes there. We've got something of a train forming, much larger than these 2 groups that we've been watching back in 10th place. Andre in the 140. You've got AJ Campbell in there, De Jong, along with Carty and Rob Hop. Hop's been doing a good job. Started from 23rd without his qualifying time. Up into 14th. Make that 13th as he overtakes Nick Carty down into the bus stop chicane.
Good textbook maneuver there, taking full advantage of the draft, riding on board here with Rob Hopp. Now his next car up the road is going to be De Jong. He's certainly close enough to make maximum effect of the draft here, and that's a two-wide battle with Solander and Campbell, I believe. They looked like they were going to be too wide for a second. Now Campbell trying to take a little bit of an opposite line to Solander, gets a good run out of La Source. A little bit of rear tire spin, but he's still going to be close enough to maybe make a move coming up over Radillon.
Just coming up quick as they fly towards that historic corner up and over the crest. He's very close. I can tell you that our leaders are going to change around once again with Wojciech going to the front of that group. Here we go as they go 2 by 2, and ooh, that is blocking off the likes of De Jong in a big way. He lifts, not willing to risk it.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty heady call there from De Jong. He knows that there's just a lot of room for error there. Ooh, that's Campbell getting a little bit squirrely and off into the grass. That's going to cost him at least a position 2, maybe 3 here, as that's Carty going by.
Rob Hopp back down to 14th where he was before, unfortunately. So all that hard work was undone. Now 24 minutes left to go. Next time by, it'll be just about at the halfway mark. See if we get any takers. As we look at the leaders down into Fanyes, it is Podacek leading Plaisir and Just Jonk behind them. 1.7 seconds back to Burns, still chipping away at that gap, 10th by 10th.
Riding on board with David Burns here. Yeah, he was really able to get that down to about 1.5, 1.6 as they came out of Le Calme. Just losing a little bit of time once the straightaways start to pick up. At about 1.68 here right now. That's going to be outside of draft range for David Third Degree Burns, but he is continuing to close it in. He needs to get that gap down to about 1.2 seconds, I would imagine, and then he'll definitely start to feel the toe from Just Jonk up ahead of him.
Leaders will switch around a little bit once again and definitely pushing Burns going at his limit. Gyros just behind him. Gyros and Wilford, I wonder if they're going to wind up jumping David, though, because he's pushing so hard and letting them save fuel behind them. This time across the line, Jonk going to be the last in that group. It's a 2:49.2 with Burns at a 2:48.2. But the gap looks like it has gone up. It's about at 2.6. No, it's gone back down. 1.5 between Just and David, our championship rivals. If you're just joining us, that's why we are concentrating so much on that pair, because they are the ones that look to be taking charge after this round in terms of the points lead.
Indeed, Joe, and very heads-up driving there. Some of our viewers may have noticed that Jonk was taking an alternate line, getting out of the draft, going before Radillon, and this is the reason why he wanted to time that pass perfectly so he could be flat out over the crest of the hill. Jonk's going to move his way back into leading position. Behind him, Christopher Gyros making a move on David Burns, so that's going to slot Burns into line. He'll now be able to take a little bit of advantage of the draft of Gyros, and we'll have to see how that plays out. I'd imagine these drivers are going to be coming into the pits, though, within about the next 5 minutes or so, so maybe only a lap or 2 more on these fuel tanks.
Yeah, and it's going to be a narrow pit window with how long the laps are for sure. Down to 1.1 second between Gyros and Podacek. They should be able to feel it next time on the run from Stavelot up to Blanchimont. If he can just hold that gap through this portion of the lap. That depends on how quick the 36 is today. He started from the 13th position, so that doesn't bode well, honestly, for Burns, who now sits behind him. But you never know. So we ride on board now with the 125, still seeking that first win of the season. He's not going to try and attack. He doesn't want to slow both of them up through Fanyes. He knows that he's got to stay patient here. It's up to 1.3 seconds. They could be losing valuable tenths.
Yeah, I think they're losing just a little bit, but Burns was also losing a little bit of time when he was in the lead of this pack as well. So there's Burns just wheeling on that car, trying to get it right now. He's got to time the draft here perfectly. That should get him a couple of miles an hour, and I'd imagine it'll be able to allow him to slingshot forward a little bit. Yeah, there you see Giros kind of letting Burns by. Burns wanting to go back into the lead here. Speed continuing to build. Burns able to get a little bit of an advantage. He's going to be ahead by the time they go into Blanchimont. That's going to be good for him. He'll be able to carry that speed and not really have to worry about getting the car upset in front of him. Giros almost thinking about trying to fight back here. He's almost close enough, but he pokes his nose to the outside there. That's just to slow him up a little bit. The gap now back up to about 1.4 seconds for David Burns as they break for the bus stop.
It's ebbing and flowing. The question is, where is it going to settle when it comes to that crucial time? I am seriously impressed, though, with this second group. I didn't really think that they would manage to do it, even though I knew it was potentially possible. But they've made this a much closer race than we would have thought, up to 1.3 seconds. Looks like Krumholtz can be the first to blink from the mid-pack, so he is pitting now.
And looks like Salander also doing the same thing there. As they come out of La Source, Burns has got that gap down to 1.3 seconds, so he's going to be on a full push here. He's going to be hoping, I think, that these guys ahead of him don't actually get too much of an advantage from the draft. Ooh, as they crest over Radillon, gap growing back out to about 1.6. That's the draft not coming into play, but we're almost 3 wide up front.
We are 3 wide up front, and coming out ahead, it is going to be Potacek. Plaisir slots into second, Yonk into third behind them. Wilfert now leads, but it's up to 1.5 seconds. I'm starting to think that front group has got it figured out on how to be quickest out here, because they're starting to grow the gap back.
Yeah, exactly, Joe. And I think the problem is the timing is a little bit out of sync for this second group. What really feels like needs to happen is that Burns needs to be leading through the downhill run from Lacombe through Stavelot, then get past going into Blanchimont and into the bus stop, and then he would be able to move back in front when they would get over Eau Rouge and Radillon. That would be absolutely perfect for this leading group at the time, or this second group. But the timing, I think, just not working out exactly the way that Burns wants it to, and that's really costing him some time. The gap now back up to about 1.7 seconds.
We focused so much on this. The other thing we haven't talked about really is that it's 11 seconds behind sixth, down to Jeff Randall in seventh. That's the poor guy that is running on his own without anybody to slipstream, but is looking at least at a decent finish here today. And there you see Jeffrey on screen as Christopher Crook is the one behind him. Chris might actually be able to catch up to him as well. He's one position down from where he began this race, so he could have pace to try and gain on the 107. We hop on board with Chris as he flies out of Stavelot.
Yeah, and you can see just how precise he's having to be. Very minimal inputs on the wheel, just a little bit of a kink to the right there, but trying to keep it as smooth as possible. With as narrow as these tires on the Skippies are, there's not a lot of grip to be had, so you really have to maximize any time you decide to turn that wheel. Watching now, and we've got pitters up front, Joe. That's the whole leading pack and the whole second pack, all 6 diving down pit lane.
Everybody in. Does this mean they've been running too hard of a pace? They couldn't make an extra lap. It's still 17 minutes left. And it looks like behind them, Jeff Randall in, Christopher Crook as well. This might just be the end of the pit window. It just might be that small, as Rob Hopp, AJ Campbell, Titus DeYoung, Nick Carty. Yes, everybody is in. No variation here amongst our drivers. They all know that this is it, except, do we have someone? Yeah, Troy Banks. Banks is going to stay out. Can he make this, and will it net him much?
Yeah, everybody besides Bank, but the big news out of the pit stop, you'll see it there right on the right of your screen. This is the order as they come out. Potacek, Yonk, Burns now able to get good advantage of the draft here. So Burns able to jump his way up and insert himself into that conversation of the fight. And because Banks stayed out, he'll get the advantage of the draft coming up the hill, and he'll be able to get himself closer to Just Yonk.
Oh, that is bad news for David Burns, though, because Just Yonk Oh, excuse me. No, it was Burns that was towing on Troy Banks there. Just Jonk has got the bad news then at 1 second ahead of David Burns. So the battle is on. David was able to leapfrog. And critically for Remco, he was 2 seconds longer in the pit stop. Unfortunately, he seems like he may have dropped out of things. Gyros is the one fighting with him at this stage as Wilfert lost out the worst, the slowest stop of anybody in that group of 6. But we're still waiting on Troy Banks to come in and take a pit stop, and he will leave these guys behind. But he's getting valuable slipstream, have a little bit of a faster lap.
Indeed, Joe. There we ride on board with Banks as he tries to chase down a little bit of David Burns. Now, we were talking about those pit stop times. Those 3 leaders, Potacek, Jonk, and Burns, they were all within about 0.5 of a second of one another. So I think if there's any fuel concerns between the 3 of them, they're going to have to all pretty much be on the same strategy. Jonk looking very, very close, though, there to Potacek as they make their way through Fanyes right now. And that, I think, is going to allow for Burns to catch up a little bit more as Jonk's having to check up behind Potacek.
Now, Burns has been in this position before. He's been in a direct race at the end with Just Jonk and can't seem to beat him in the end. It looks like the 13 has been able to out-strategize him when it comes to those draft races at the very end of the race. So will he be able to pull it all over again as they are going to switch around, Jonk and Potacek. Burns just sitting behind as they approach Blanchimont. For those wondering and fans of Troy Banks, he's coming up to the pit entry now. They're just in the background. He's not going to be able to give Remco and Gyros a slipstream all that much longer if they hope to try and catch up to that top trio. And there goes Banks.
All right, so that is your entire field into the pits. As we continue to watch there, you saw Burns taking a little bit of an over-under line on Just Jonk. Let's watch as they dive down into La Source, see if Burns does similar. No, he's just going to stay right in the tire tracks of that 13 machine. Potacek now poking his nose out a little bit more, trying to slow himself down deliberately to time that run correctly. That's the move that we saw Jonk doing earlier. Burns going to be very, very close behind. That may hurt him a little bit coming up through Eau Rouge and Radillon as he may have to feather the throttle ever so slightly.
From here, it is what kind of skills do you have in these Talladega-style races? Do you know when to go? Do you know how to keep it clean and stay out of trouble? Well, Potacek does. He's going to try and lead, and Burns decides he wants to lead as well. He'll split the difference, go between them, and actually get up ahead of Potacek. Your new leader is David Burns.
Impressive move there from Burns. That's a little bit of aggression that I wouldn't expect to see from him, but I think he knew the stakes there and just knew the overspeed that he had. The other thing that tells me is that Burns feels pretty good about his fuel load. He didn't feel like he needed to stick back and wait. He saw an opportunity and he went for it.
By the way, Troy Banks returned in 16th place after his pit stop, so he's out running once again, but he's not quite in the mid-pack. So we watch our top 3 narrowed down from what was almost 6 before. You can see a pair of them back behind them in the form of Gyros and Remco, with Wilfert giving chase back there, having almost lost a chance at victory at this stage. And it's down to 3 instead, with Burns, Potacek, and Jonk. 12 minutes to go. We're going to be less than 12 at the crossing of the finish line, so we should have just about 4 laps left, I believe.
I think that's about right, Joe. Riding on board here with Just Jonk. He's a little bit closer to Potacek than Potacek is to Burns right now, but a healthy gap behind them as Gyros and Remco are about 3.5 seconds behind. They're locked in their own little battle. Looks like nobody's going to have a move here through Blanchimont, picking up speed. Maybe a little bit of something here for Potacek if he wants it going down to the bus stop. Pokes his nose a little bit earlier into Blanchimont, but I think that cost him a little bit of time. Potacek just trying to find the right angle here. Jonk as well. Everybody early on the binders going down into the bus stop. Nobody wanting to make a move just yet, but watch for it. I think we're going to see something out of La Source.
Yeah, they've been changing around there pretty frequently. But I have to wonder, I mean, where do you want to place yourself, DJ? Do you want to try and be third when you see the white flag? Do you want to be in the lead no matter what, because they can try and fight back up to the bus stop. So there's multiple places where this could switch around. How do you plan this out?
My best guess of where I want to be is probably in second or third by the time you get through Lacombe, and just try to focus everything I have on Stavelot and getting that run through Blanchimont. We've seen a couple of times that it's very, very possible to get the run down through there. And so what these drivers are doing is starting to work their way back from that position. There comes Podacek around the outside. Is Young going to do the same thing we saw Burns do last time and shoot the difference? It's going to be 3 wide going on the Kemmel Straight. Podacek not really backing off here. Yonk, though, and there's the back off from Podacek. So it's now going to be Yonk, Podacek, and Burns, 1, 2, 3.
Behind them, it is Gyros leading Remco right now for 4th and 5th. So those two have changed around as well. Got a little bit of a working agreement with Krumholtz and Crook as well in 7th. They're all kind of splitting up into packs. No attack from Christopher Crook that time by into the La Source hairpin, or excuse me, the Lacombe chicane.
Yeah, no attack there from Crook. I think he's biding his time a little bit. He may be doing that same thing we just talked about. Looks a little bit better through Brussels there as they make their way around that long downhill right-hander. Now jumping back to the roll hoop, you can see Crook taking a lot of that entry curbing into No Name.
I love how these cars look when they drive. They can slide quite a bit and get away with it. You can see the yaw on the car ahead. And that is beautifully handled by Stefan, just putting enough into it to try and keep the speed up, but definitely chucking the car into the turn as they now head into Fanyes once more. And I think I heard Nick Anderson going into pit lane for some reason. I'm not sure what caused that. We'll try and look into that a little bit later. But the battle for 7th place being led by the 744, and the 63 is chasing.
Certainly is, and now this is that crucial area. There you see, that was Crook taking a little bit of a wide line as they made their way out of Stavelot. I think that'll probably be an incident point for him. Our leader's breaking down into the bus stop right now. Crook trying to get a little bit of a draft here. Is he going to go for it?
Crook looked like he was missing the apex a little bit as well as they come into La Source and down towards the bus stop between Krumholtz and Crook. We weave their way through, coming towards the start-finish line with only 8 minutes left to go on the clock now. We hop onto the nose of Christopher, looking ahead. We stay on here up through Eau Rouge. This will give us a really good idea of just how steep and tall that hill is.
Yeah, it's one of those corners that everybody always says, oh, you got to see it in person, you don't understand it, but this is about the best as you can do. There you can see Eau Rouge and Radillon just rising like a tower in front of you. Crook trying to take full advantage of the draft here, riding over through Eau Rouge, there up through Radillon. Absolutely perfect.
Just sticking in the slipstream. Podacek stayed ahead of Yonkin Burns that time, up towards the Lacombe chicane. I'm starting to think that this is where Yonk and Burns want to be, that they're trying to not overtake anymore because they prefer to be in the 2nd or 3rd position and try to take advantage of that slipstream come the final lap. They have not been caught by 4th place yet, although I think the gap may have come down slightly as Remco got it to 4 seconds right now. There you see the distance between themselves and the pair that is chasing.
Yeah, it's a pretty big gap there, about 4.3 seconds. These 3 leaders doing a great job to keep everything apart in their own little battle. Burns looking very close here to Yonk. Whew, they are dangerously close as they work their way through Fanyes.
They're not afraid of this. They know how these cars race against each other. So I think that they're very comfy where they sit right now. Know just how close they can go before they run the risk of potentially hitting some lag that could run them into one another. They weave out of Stavelot once again. A great run from Yonk. But once again, there goes my theory out the window. He pulls off to the side ahead of Potacek and is going to be fully passed before they get to Blanchimont. Potacek blinking a bit for me, unfortunately. Hope he gets that settled out before they get to the final lap, because as they come up to the bus stop, this time through, it is the start of the penultimate lap. 2 to go now.
Indeed it is, Joe, and I gotta say here, I think David Burns is playing a little bit of chess. We haven't seen a lot of aggression out of him, but he knows exactly where he needs to make the move. This is that sort of heads-up driving that we've come to expect from David Burns. Let's see if he tries to make a move here on this lap to set himself up for the run like I talked about earlier.
So Yonk in front now, Potacek in the middle, Burns just sitting behind. And David hasn't made many moves lately. Wonder if his fuel is okay. He did have a 15-second stop, which is about the same as what Potacek did. There's a move. Okay, now he starts to want to go to the front. And it'll be all the way to the front as he uses that extra speed to get a nose ahead of Just Yonk. Into the braking. Will we see Just try and fight back? He's got an opening, and he's going to slide in. No fight back there from that green and black number 13.
All right, so this is Burns starting to assert his dominance. Now, if I'm Burns, I've got to think that I'm probably going to get passed by Yonk on the run down into the bus stop, and then it'll be interesting to see what he does. I don't think we haven't really seen enough overspeed coming out of Stavelot through Blanchimont and into the bus stop to make me think that the third-place car can pull it off there. But I do think if you're in second, you've got a really good shot of making the move into that final chicane. I think that's the position you want to be in on the last lap. Second place out of Stavelot, making the move.
All right, make a note of that. Let's see if that prediction becomes true. We now approach that white flag within about half a lap. Burns ahead of Yonk, ahead of Potacek. Heroes cut it down a little bit more. It's under 4 seconds now. He and Remco not giving up hope on this one, but they're going to get some handy points. There you see them on screen in the gap between themselves and the group in front, and then each other on top of it. For some reason, Troy Banks came into pit lane and retired, so he is done. We've lost Brame, Adams, Zelke, and Banks so far. Still 20 cars running on track.
Yeah, good track record here for the Absolute Beginners League. Follow our leaders here. Looks like Yonk's got to run if he wants it. Is he going to try to go for it down into the bus stop? No, I think that's a little bit of a back off for Just Yonk. Wait, no, maybe thinking about it a little bit more. No, he's going to stay in line.
White flag pulled out, and Barney waves it for our trio at the front. 1 to go. Barely, though. This actually might be close. They're running 2:48 last time through, and they crossed it right about that time. Will we get an extra lap on this? And what is that going to do for fuel as Potacek goes very wide? I don't think he's going to lose the slipstream, but an unusual mistake there from the 28.
Indeed, definitely putting him out of line there. All right, here comes Yonk. Now he's taking that line that we've seen before, trying to deliberately get out of the draft so he can just be absolutely flat out coming through Eau Rouge and Radillon. Timed it perfectly there, did Just Yonk. Here he comes on the attack right now. Watch for him to try to make this move. I guarantee you he's going to try to do it going down the Kemmel Straight. Burns not going defensive. Just backing off a little bit. I think Just is thinking the same thing I was. He doesn't want to make the pass here. He wants to make it out of Stavelot.
Behind them, looks like we have a change for Remco and Christopher, with the 7 going into 4th place now. Again, I wonder, did they cross too soon? Is this actually going to be the last lap? And will that cost someone a chance at the victory because they didn't take enough fuel? Working their way down into No Name Speaker's corner here, the left-hander, and out of it. Potacek is not caught up yet. He fell back a little bit. It's about a second between himself and Yonk. Is he trying to save enough fuel, or is he slowing it up, hoping that the drivers ahead will run out of fuel? Let's see. They come out of Puhan now. Still 0.2 of a second between Burns and Jonk, with Burns leading.
And as we continue to watch this battle, Joe, remember that the guys behind them, Pfizer, Giros, and Wilfred, they were longer in the box. So if we do get an extra lap here, this could see the advantage shift back to them. But as we watch here through Campus into Stavelo, this is the run for Jonk. If we're coming to the checkered flag, this is exactly what I talk about, exactly where he wants to be. Here comes the 13.
He can't take a risk on whether or not this is the last lap. He has got to get to the lead. And David Burns holds side by side. He'll have the inside for Blanchimont, but the outside under braking. Into the bus stop, wheel to wheel between them, inches to spare. And he just manages to hold on with the nose ahead, but now it switches to the outside. Here comes Podacek. He doesn't try and get involved as they break into the corner, getting ahead. Just Jonk, is this going to be it? We're getting the checkered flag as they cross the line. Just Jonk looks to be declared our winner here today at Spa.
Joe, that has got to be one of the closest finishes we've seen in the ABL. Absolutely perfect timing for Just Jonk. Giros able to come home in fourth with Pilsner behind. This is a battle there. This is Krumholtz and Crook.
As they come out of the final corner, the 63 is ahead. That's not going to be enough for Krumholtz. He'll have to finish for 8th as we get a side-by-side battle between Selander. Brain trying to launch off the corner. He might actually have it. We're going to go 3 wide across the line to decide 10th place, and it's going to be Brain.
Wow, incredible battles all the way up and down the field. AJ Campbell almost thinking about trying to make a move down there on the inside. Just an absolutely stellar finish from first, really all the way down to 12th.
Let's take a look at the finish one more time here. Couldn't have been tighter, and it was separated by 1/10 of a second between them. Poor David has come so close here, and yet again, he finds himself unable to make up the difference in the last lap.
Yeah, and you saw there in the braking phase, David, I think, braked a little bit later, and about mid-braking phase was able to be ahead of Jonk, but then as they came into the corner, that alternate line for him just favored back to Jonk, and he couldn't maintain it around the outside, and that gave Jonk the preferred line through the final part of the bus stop, and that's eventually what ended up costing David Burns the race.
Looks like it caught a few people out by surprise. A number of them expected it to go a lap longer, but we'll discuss that after our break, where we will have our driver interviews as well as the unofficial results. So don't go away. Welcome back to Spa-Francorchamps. We just watched round 4 of the Absolute Beginners League Formula Neagle. Yus Jonk took win number 3 this season over David Burns by a 1/10 of a second. It was Potacek behind them who made a little mistake early on the final lap. That cost him a shot at things as Giros finished 4th from 13th. Remco started in the front row, fell down to 5th, sadly, as Wilford was in 6th. Christopher Crook, P7, followed by Krumholtz in 8th. Then you've got Jeff Randall 9th, and Josh Brain got spun around early on and finished 10th.
In 11th, it was Andre Salander recovering from that off he had through Lacombe with AJ Campbell behind them. That was a great fight at the line. Behind him in 13th, it was Nick Carty, followed by Rob Hopp, who made a big jump up through the field, up 9 positions. Titus de Jong was 15th, followed by Dana Bose and Mackenzie Mann in 17th. Christian Garula was 18th, followed by Klaas Loden in 19th, and Nicholas Anderson rounds out your top 20.
From there on down, sadly, it was DNFs today, so these drivers did not see the checkered flag. But David Burns with another second place. I'm curious to know if the frustration is starting to show itself. How do you feel, David? You were 1/10 away from finally getting a win this season. Looks like there we go. Now we have David in with us. And David, I'm curious if you're feeling any frustration after another second place. You're 1/10 of a second away from finally getting a win this season.
Not so much frustration, more relief, because I actually thought I was going to die. That moment very early on, lap 1, going into what I think is the aptly named Puhon corner, because a little bit came out. That was a PC moment. I don't know what went on, but my PC just had a moment, and on cold tires, I thought I was dead. How I held that, I do not know. I was just glad to get back in the fight.
Oh, that is what is impressive. How did you manage to do that? Were you in communication with those other drivers trying to get them to work with you, or was that sheer will? With
Gayros and with Wilford, and not really. It just sort of worked out well. I think what also helped was Remco, who's new and used. They were squabbling a little bit. They weren't working together as much, so I was able to catch them. And by the time we got to the pit stop, I was surprised. I was right behind them, so I was just relieved. And Gayros and Wilford, they worked really well together. So I've got thanks to them that I wouldn't have caught them if it hadn't been for them.
Also, sounds like a few drivers were surprised at the number of laps that there wind up being. Did you get caught out by that? Did you think it was going to go one more?
I knew, because my fuel program was telling me it was constantly changing from 1 lap less to 1 lap more. So I thought, right, if I push really hard, which is why I fought to get in front second last lap, I thought I can maybe make it 1 less lap, which is I was kind of doing it to help everyone, because there's nothing worse than running out of fuel. So I thought, and I had an extra lap of fuel anyway. So yeah, when I went over the line, it just blipped under that time and it went to white flags. So I was like, oh, well, that's good.
Well, glad to hear that there's at least relief for you, but one more race of the season, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you there. Is there anybody you want to thank for this podium?
Just everyone that's raced today, and all the fellow admins, and Just as well, I think deserves credit, because he's performed really well this season. So big thanks to him. His racing with him has been really good.
Yeah, the Junkyard Dog now on 3 wins out of 4. As that was our second place finisher, David Burns. Behind him, we've got Wojciech Potacek, who started on pole but wound up 3rd.
Well, Wojciech, it was a battle back and forth the entire race there for you, but you were always running at the front. And I got to say, this podium's got to feel good for you.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I would say it's been a while since the last time I was on podium or in the booth. So I would say it was really nice. I wouldn't say it was well-deserved, because, guys like Just, David, they're way faster. But the idea was, to get a best time in the quali, thanks to the draft from David and Vincent. But I still cannot believe how I could end up with P1. And then I just decided, to make it clean to the end. I thought that if it's going to be top 3, it's still going to be perfect result for me.
Well, it certainly seemed that way, and I love that attitude of just, trying to keep it up there as much as possible. But coming into that last lap, sitting back in 3rd, Were you thinking about maybe trying to make a big move going down into La Source or going down into the bus stop, or were you just kind of like, okay?
I would say, yeah, just for the moment, but I made a mistake in turn one and I lost a bit of a time to the guys. So I wasn't, even thinking that I'm going to catch them at the end. But later when I discovered that they're just like, inches away from me before the bus stop, I thought, maybe they will, have a contact and I will be able to get a use of it, but it didn't happen. So still P3 is really good. So I thought it's better to make it clear instead of, wrecking.
I'd say that's a pretty good way to think about it. But for 2 weeks from now, we hop across the border to the Nürburgring GP circuit. You think you got a chance of being back up on this podium again there?
No, I don't think so. I know where's my place in the charts. So if I'm going to be near the podium, it's still going to be good. But I hope we all will have a lot of fun as usual with you guys.
Well, I know we always love calling it, my friend. Anybody you'd like to thank for this third place here today?
I would say just everybody that was on the grid. I'm really glad that we can keep up with such a big audience, even though we have a holidays period. I missed last race because I was on a vacation as well. So going back straight from holidays to sim racing, getting pole position and a podium, it just sounds great. So I'm happy for all 24 guys that were on the grid today.
Well, I know we were happy to call it. That was Wojciech Potacek, your third place finisher here today. Joe?
That's going to close us out. So we want to give a big thank you to the Absolute Beginners League for bringing us back for another season of coverage of Formula Neagle. But also, we want to thank the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts listed here on your screen. Additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. Check out her Bandcamp for more awesome work. And thanks to the team today, DJ, Sean, and Dougie. You can find more info about GSRC at globalsimracingchannel.com or through our social media. And check out our merchandise store while you're at it. It's simracingmerch.com/GSRC. We got a link in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment, because as was mentioned, in 2 weeks' time, it's off to the Nürburgring's Grand Prix course on Sunday, August 29th at 2 p.m. Eastern. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out, mark them down on your calendar. One more for tonight, the PRL NASCAR Cup Series goes to the Indianapolis Road Course. That'll be at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.